Hey guys, good morning. So I have a question for you guys. How would you know if some countries are rich or poor? You may say that the United States is rich and developed country because the GDP of the United States is large. That is true. So GDP is basically a snapshot of the country, and we can estimate the size of the economy based on its GDP. So today I'm going to talk about the concept of GDP and how to calculate GDP. So first of all, let's start with the definition of GDP. According to the Investopedia, GDP, which is the gross domestic product, is the total monetary value or market value of all the final goods and services produced newly within a country's border in a specific time period. In other words, we just need to add all the values of goods and services, but there are some things that we need to pay attention. So the first thing is final goods. So what is a final good? Basically, final goods are goods that are ready for sale to satisfy consumers' needs. For example, cotton t-shirt will be considered as final goods, but cotton fabric will be considered as intermediate goods because the cotton fabric is a raw material to make cotton t-shirt and reproduce and sell it to the consumers. Besides, we also need to be careful if the goods are newly produced. For example, we will not count it again as part of GDP if someone buys a car that was produced like 10 years ago, right? And we also need to make sure that goods are produced within a country's border. For example, if a Canadian company set up a factory in China, the products of the factory will not count as Canada GDP. Okay, now let's go through some quick examples to see if you really understand the concept of GDP. So, the first example. If you buy a raw steak from Costco, is it a final good or intermediate good? Good job. The answer is final good because the raw steak was purchased by an end consumers to eat, right? So let's think about it in another way. If a restaurant buys a raw steak and make it a meal, is it a raw steak? Is this raw steak an intermediate good or a final good? Well done. So this raw steak will be counted as intermediate good because it was reproduced and sold to the consumer. Now you understand the concept of GDP. Let's talk about three approaches of calculate GDP. Those three approaches results should be the same, but just different ways to calculate them. The first approach is a product approach, as known as value added. It basically adds all the value of all newly produced final goods within a time period. Here's the thing. We don't count second-hand goods and used goods and intermediate goods, right? For example, suppose a raw steak is worth $10 and steakhouse buy it from Costco and sell it for $20. Which number should we count in the product approach? Good job. We should count $20, definitely, right? Because this is the value of final goods. The second way is the income approach. So, the income approach to measuring the gross domestic product is based on the accounting reality that all expenditure in an economy should equal the total income generated by the production of all economic goods and services. It also assumes that there are four major factors of production in an economy and that all revenues must go to one of the three sources. So those four factors are compensation of employees such as wages and salaries, gross operating surplus, and this is for business and corporation aspect, gross mixed income such as small business income, and eventually tax minus subsidized, which is a government aspect. The third approach is that expenditure approach. That was an old expenditure approach and a new expenditure approach. One of them is categorized by purpose, and the other approach was categorized by who is purchasing. In terms of old expenditure approach, the formula is Y equals C plus I plus G plus NX, which means that GDP equals to consumption spending plus investment spending plus government spending plus net export. In terms of new approach, the four categories are final consumption, and this is for personal purpose. Gross fixed capital formation, and this is for capital goods such as equipment. And inventory investment, and this is for spending on inventory, which is unsold final goods. And the last one is net export. And here's some sources I use for this video. And thank you so much.